Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Henry. A few days ago I posted a video where I had an incident underwater and while inflating my lift bag, and I said if anyone was interested in the science behind what happened during that incident as well as to my body afterwards, that I post a video about it. Only one person said they were interested, so this video is for you, Mark. Just to clarify, I formerly owned a scuba diving shop for many years, and I am a certified regulator service technician under multiple brands. All right, so here's my regulator that you've probably seen. If you're a scuba diver, you're familiar with this, but if you're not, this is a regulator that goes in my mouth. The gas comes from the tank in the back, goes in here, and then it's an on-demand valve, meaning that there is a little lever inside, and every time I take a breath, it opens up a little chamber and allows gas that's positive pressure inside this hose to flow into this chamber and into my mouth. And then when I stop inhaling, that lever goes back into its default position, shuts off the airflow so that the air simply stays inside. Obviously in that video, when you saw the extreme forceful nature of the bubbles nonstop coming out of my regulator, is because it's now in a free flow position. Here's what happened. So inside this chamber, let me take it apart and I'll show you. So this is the regulator here at the front. This disc is called a purge valve, and you simply push in, and that activates a little lever that sits behind this diaphragm. So this little lever back here, and you can see that it's spring loaded. So that spring is the problem. That spring resembles the spring is inside this black chamber right here, and I don't want to bother taking this apart. So you have to trust me. Inside this black tube, there's a little spring, and the spring would resemble the clicking Bic pen that has those little springs on the inside, except this spring is much smaller, and the gauge of that wire that makes up the spring is super thin, so it's very susceptible to temperature. So typically these regulators are tuned to the ambient temperature that's inside the dive shop. So if the dive shop is 20 degrees inside, that's what they tune it to. The problem is that the water temperature that I was diving at was about 0, maybe around -1-ish, give or take, on that particular day. So that spring in the code contracted a little bit, tiny bit. Like we're talking like a very small percentage of a millimeter. So what happens is when I'm breathing normally, the demand of my breathing pulls that spring just together just enough for it to actuate the airflow from this hose into this chamber here. But when I press the purge valve, it pulls that spring all the way open, much more than when I'm breathing. And then once I released the purge valve, the spring was unable to settle back into position because it had already contracted a little bit because of the cold, and because of the ambient pressure of the air forcefully flowing into this breathing chamber here, and it was essentially forcing the valve to be open, failing in an open position, which is great because I can get air, but bad because I'm losing my air. So that's what happened. So what happens after the dive or during the dive as far as my body goes? Well, as we descend in the water column, the pressure of the water is squeezing any volume of air. So right now at sea level, I'm standing in 14.76 psi of pressure on everything around me. When I enter the water column, because the water is a denser material, what happens is every atmosphere, which is 10 meters or 33 feet, the water compresses, has a pressure of 14.76. So at 2 atmospheres, it doubles that, another 14.76, and 3 atmospheres, so on. So basically what happens is the air that's entering my body gets compressed down, and there's more molecule in the same space as I drop in the water column. So the problem is that when I breathe that air in, I need to allow it time to exit my body, which is why scuba divers have slow ascend rates as we come up to the surface, as well as we do a safety stop. Usually at 15 feet or so, we do a safety stop, hang out for 3 minutes, and that allows the gas to further come out from our body. So in this particular case here, I ascended from By the time I decided to bail my dive, it was around 46 feet or so, and it took me about a minute to get to the surface. Went as slow as I could, as quickly as I could, essentially. I didn't have time to do a safety stop. In my mind, I knew I was going to be fine in the sense of the total amount of the dive from beginning to end was 18 minutes. And that included starting out the very, very shallow, where it was only 2 or 3 feet of water, slowly descend the lake bottom down to the deepest part. And then also that included the minute that it took for me to get to the surface. So really, I was at the deepest part of the lake for probably maybe 10 minutes. So very, very short dive, did not allow a ton of gas to enter my body and get trapped in joints and fatty tissues and so on. Had it been a much longer dive, then I would be exposed to higher risk. So for example, if I was much deeper at 100 feet, 200 feet, whatever the number is, and I was there for 45 minutes, an hour and a half, then I would have a much higher opportunity to trap gas bubbles inside my body. I have a few things going for me outside of those parameters. I am relatively healthy. I do a lot of exercise. I'm not overweight. The more body fat that you carry, the more places for those deep tissue bubbles to be trapped. So what happens after the dive? Well, after the dive, what I did is made sure that I didn't elevate my heart rate. I didn't have any alcohol intake for 24 hours. Don't go into a hot tub. Don't sit in a sauna. Anything to elevate your blood pressure or to make your heart rate higher, because now you're pumping any kind of small bubbles that are potentially trapped inside your body, you're artificially forcing it through your tissues. And as most people understand, forcing bubbles through your bloodstream potentially up into your brain is a bad thing. After the dive, I knew to just relax and chill for 24 hours, and it was more of a precaution than anything else. So there you go, you guys. That's the science behind what happened during the dive itself, and then what happens to my body afterwards. If you have any questions, post them below, and I will try to answer them in the next video or so. Thanks, guys. See you in the next one.